Welcome to the deep dive. You know those aches and pains, the ones that just seem to pop up out of nowhere? Like that knot in your shoulder that never really leaves? Or maybe a headache that just keeps coming back?
Yeah, absolutely. Things that don't have a clear, medical explanation.
Exactly. We often treat our bodies a bit like machines, right? Look for the broken part, try to fix it.
That's the standard approach, isn't it?
But what if? What if these feelings, these physical sensations are actually trying to tell us something more?
Like a different kind of communication.
Yeah, like our bodies are speaking a language we haven't quite, learned to decipher yet.
It's a really fascinating way to think about it, shifting perspective like that.
Right.
To consider that maybe the discomfort isn't just random noise, but it's a signal from somewhere deeper.
From the unconscious, maybe?
Potentially, yes.
What?
We tend to separate things, don't we? Mind over here, body over there.
Definitely.
But really, they're so tightly interwoven, you can't truly pull them apart.
So let's think about someone, maybe call her Anna, mid-30s, right? And she's just plagued by these chronic migraines.
Okay.
Doctors have done all the scans, the tests. Nothing shows up. Medically, she's fine.
But the pain is very real.
Oh, absolutely. It's seriously affecting her life. It makes you wonder then, could this sort of rebellion her body seems to be staging, could it have roots that go beyond just the physical stuff?
That phrase, the brain rebelling, that feels significant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really suggests some kind of internal conflict, a tension maybe between different parts of her experience or different desires that haven't found a voice.
Right, like they can't be spoken directly.
Exactly. Think of like a pressure cooker analogy. If you clamp the lid down and don't let the steam out,
That's going to find a way out somehow.
it'll find the weakest point, and sometimes that point might be physical.
Okay, so diving into that idea of conflict, Freud's concept of the Ibid comes up. That really primal, instinctual part of us, it's not logical, is it?
Not at all. It operates on the pleasure principle, seeking immediate gratification for basic drives and urges. It's the raw energy.
Could these unexplained physical symptoms then, could they be a way for that energy, that raw, instinctual stuff to kind of bubble up, especially if our conscious mind is always trying to keep it locked down?
That's a core idea, yes. If those fundamental desires, those impulses, are constantly denied or repressed, maybe by our own internal rules or societal pressures, they don't just evaporate.
They have to go somewhere.
Precisely. They can find these indirect routes. And the body, being so intimately tied to our emotions, our core being, it can become the stage, the vehicle for this unprocessed energy.
So the body ends up speaking for the parts the mind won't let speak.
In a way, yes. It becomes the voice for what can't or won't be consciously acknowledged.
So it's not just like you stubbed your toe. It's about these unresolved inner tensions finding a physical form.
Exactly. It goes deeper.
That example used sometimes of the young girl who's always criticized by her mother at dinner. She can't yell back. She can't express that anger.
Right. She has to swallow it.
Does that feeling just disappear? Or does it get stored somehow?
That's the key question, isn't it? Psychoanalytically, the idea is that emotions that aren't fully felt, processed, and discharged can get trapped. They become like these knots of energy inside us. And that energy needs release. If we don't find constructive ways, talking, creating whatever works it can, well, manifest physically as tension, as pain.
As Anna's headaches, maybe?
Yeah.
Or someone else's clenched jaw?
Could be. The physical symptom becomes an echo, a representation of those unspoken, unfelt emotional experiences.
And this links to Freud's idea of conversion, right? Where psychological distress kind of converts into a physical symptom.
Yes, conversion disorder is the term. The psychic pain is unbearable, so it's transformed unconsciously into a bodily manifestation.
The example given was the head. Thinking, control, authority, and then a headache representing maybe unbearable pressure or thoughts you can't let out. It's a strange kind of logic, but it makes a certain sense.
It's a symbolic logic. The body often speaks metaphorically, reflecting our inner state. So a recurring intense headache like Anna's. It might symbolize the weight of unspoken words, absolutely.
Or maybe the pressure of expectation.
Or the pressure of expectations, the burden of responsibility she feels, maybe a sense of being overwhelmed by thoughts or feelings she feels she has to contain. It really invites the question, what kind of pressure is Anna under? Consciously or unconsciously?
And that connects to another theme with Anna, this feeling of powerlessness. Always putting others first,
The people pleaser pattern.
Right, taking on extra work, feeling like she has to apologize just for existing almost. How does that constant self-effacement link up with physical symptoms?
Well, if we view it through the lens of unconscious conflict, this pattern of constantly minimizing her own needs could stem from a very deep, perhaps unconscious belief.
A belief that her needs aren't okay.
Or that asserting them will lead to something bad: rejection, conflict, abandonment. So she preemptively makes herself small. This creates a huge internal imbalance, this constant giving.
Without receiving.
Exactly. And the body might react to that depletion or protest against it through symptoms.
Which could bring in guilt, couldn't it? Like the internal critic, the superego, is constantly judging her, punishing her for even having needs or wanting to set a boundary.
That's a very common dynamic. A harsh superego, that internalized voice of authority and judgment, can create this pervasive feeling of I'm not good enough or I shouldn't want this.
That sounds exhausting.
It's incredibly draining, that constant internal pressure. The body might respond physically just to signal that it's unsustainable. Or maybe the symptom forces her to withdraw from situations where that pressure feels most intense.
Like the headache forcing her to lie down in a dark room.
Exactly. An escape of sorts.
And underneath the guilt, there might be this deeper fear. Fear of rejection, maybe abandonment, even a kind of primal fear of annihilation, of not existing, maybe rooted way back in early experiences.
Fear is such a fundamental driver. And when it's buried deep, unconscious fear, it can really shape our lives and our bodies without us even realizing it. If Anna, say, had early experiences of insecurity, maybe an emotionally unavailable parent.
She might have learned ways to cope.
Unconscious strategies, yes. And one strategy might be, if I make myself small, if I don't have needs, if I almost disappear, then I can't be hurt or rejected.
So it's almost paradoxical. The headache, the very thing causing her pain, could actually be a weird form of self-preservation.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, the symptom, while distressing, can inadvertently serve a protective function. It forces a retreat. It creates a boundary, maybe a physical boundary, when the conscious mind feels unable to set an emotional one.
It's forcing her to stop and to withdraw, creating this space, even if it's a painful space, where she doesn't have to be on for everyone else.
Precisely. A forced pause, a necessary withdrawal, albeit at a cost.
Okay, so how do you even begin to access this stuff? The idea mentioned is focusing on the pain itself. Where is it? What does it feel like? What feelings or images does it bring up?
That's a key therapeutic approach. It's about shifting attention inward, towards the bodily sensation.
Not necessarily looking for a specific memory, like, oh, this headache started when X happened.
Not always. Sometimes that happens, but often the unconscious communicates more subtly. Through fragments, sensations, fleeting images, maybe just a felt sense. It's often pre-verbal, non-linear.
More like traces of older experiences?
Exactly, traces held in the body. By paying close attention to the physical symptom, its qualities, its location, what arises with it, we can start to get glimpses of the unconscious narratives, the unresolved conflicts that might be fueling it.
And then there are the defense mechanisms we all use. Repression, denial. Ways our ego tries to manage difficult feelings and conflicts between, say, the id and the superego.
Right, the ego is the mediator trying to balance those internal demands with external reality. Defenses are necessary, they help us function.
But they're not perfect.
No, and they can become maladaptive or rigid. When our usual defenses aren't quite containing the pressure from the unconscious, or when they start to break down.
That's when the unconscious might push through in other ways, like through the body.
That's one possibility, yes. The symptom can arise when the defenses are failing, and this underlying material is seeking expression, albeit in a disguised form.
There are some really clear examples given of how specific physical issues might link to emotional ones. Anna's tense shoulders, for instance. Carrying the weight of responsibility she took on, maybe because of her parents, like she absorbed their burdens.
That's a powerful image, isn't it? How posture and chronic muscle tension can literally embody the psychological weight we carry. Her shoulders holding that tension. It's a tangible representation of responsibilities maybe never truly hers. It shows that deep link between emotional history and physical state.
Yeah, or someone like Mark with stomach problems.
Gastrointestinal issues, right?
Yeah, maybe symbolizing undigested experiences or emotions, like swallowing anger towards his boss day after day.
The gut is often called the second brain for a reason. It's deeply connected to our emotional processing. So yes, the idea of swallowing anger or resentment and it causing internal physical discomfort that resonates. It's like emotional indigestion.
And Sarah, with skin issues like eczema flaring up when she's criticized,
Right.
the skin being our boundary.
Our interface with the world.
Right. And relational stress literally getting under her skin.
The skin is such a sensitive barometer, especially for interpersonal stress, feelings of vulnerability, boundary issues, eczema, rashes. They can be very visible signs of inner turmoil related to our connections with others.
Then there was Emma and her chronic fatigue. Not just tired, but deep fatigue.
And exhaustion.
Maybe as a form of resistance, like her body saying no to a life, the corporate job that doesn't feel right, even if her mind feels trapped by expectations.
Fatigue that goes beyond physical exertion can absolutely be a powerful psychological statement. A withdrawal, a resistance, a sign that maybe life feels unfulfilling or out of sync with deeper needs or desires. A signal something needs to change.
And James, facing retirement, getting back pain. The spine representing support.
Yeah.
Maybe the pain signals a fear of collapse, of losing support or purpose.
The spine as our core support, symbolizing inner strength, resilience.
Yeah.
Yes. Back pain, especially around major life changes like retirement or linked to anxieties about value or purpose, can really reflect feelings of being unsupported, vulnerable, or a fear of weakening.
It's really emphasized, though, that these symptoms aren't just problems we need to zap or get rid of.
No, that's crucial.
They can be seen as compromises. The mind and body trying to manage tension, even if the solution isn't great. Like Anna's migraine, maybe it lets out some anger, but it also keeps her feeling like a victim.
Exactly. Symptoms often serve multiple, sometimes contradictory functions. They cause suffering, undeniably. But they might also regulate overwhelming emotions or maintain a kind of psychological balance, even if it's a dysfunctional one. Seeing that complexity changes how we approach them.
It shifts it from, how do I kill this pain?
To what might this pain be trying to communicate?
Yeah. And that idea that the symptoms are actually invitations. Invitations to explore the unconscious, face those hidden parts, work through conflicts. That gives the suffering a different meaning, doesn't it?
It reframes it entirely. Instead of just an enemy to be defeated, the symptom can become a kind of guide, pointing towards areas within ourselves that need attention, understanding, and ultimately healing.
There's also the concept of transference mentioned briefly in therapy. How feelings about past figures get projected onto the therapist.
Right, a fundamental concept.
How might that play into Anna's experience of her symptoms? Could her view of the therapist affect the pain itself?
Oh, absolutely. The therapeutic relationship itself becomes a space where these dynamics play out. If Anna sees the therapist as critical, like her mother, or distant, like her father, those feelings can definitely color her experience in the room, and potentially even influence how she experiences and reports her symptoms. The symptoms might even become part of that relational dynamic with the therapist.
Like a rehearsal of old patterns.
In a way, yes, bringing the unconscious conflict into the present relationship.
And Anna's dream about the cliff, the abyss, feeling the headache right there in the dream, that seems significant.
Dreams are often seen as a direct line to the unconscious. A cliff, an abyss. Strong symbols of being on the edge of something. Change, perhaps? The unknown.
And the headache appearing there, maybe as a warning?
Or a signal, perhaps signaling the fear associated with that potential change, what holds her back from jumping or from falling. Maybe the headache represents the tension, the fear of freedom even. Liberation from old patterns sounds good, but it also means taking responsibility in a new way. That can be terrifying.
That connects to rewriting narratives. Like Anna remembering finally defying her mother, but then feeling immense guilt. That conflict between wanting independence and fearing. What? Repeating failure, being bad.
Precisely. Those pivotal moments often encapsulate the core conflict, but the crucial point is that these internal narratives, these interpretations of our past and ourselves, they aren't set in stone.
To change them.
Through understanding, through insight, through working through the associated emotions, yes. The narrative can be gradually rewritten. Anna might start to see her independence not as defiance, but as growth, and her symptoms. Maybe not as enemies, but as allies in a way.
Allies? How so?
By forcing her to pay attention. That realization Anna has, what if my pain is trying to save me? That's a huge shift.
Reframing suffering as protection. A signal something is deeply wrong and needs addressing.
Exactly. Forcing an inward turn when maybe everything in her life pushes her outward. It makes introspection almost unavoidable. It could be seen as a prerequisite for healing in that sense. But listening like that, really listening to the body, it sounds like it takes courage.
It does. Courage, vulnerability, patience. It means sitting with discomfort, resisting the urge for a quick fix.
It's not a linear process then, no magic bullet.
Definitely not. It's an ongoing exploration, often with steps forward and backward. Healing is rarely a straight line.
So Anna's final thought. that her body might be guiding her, might know something she doesn't consciously know yet. That really sums up this perspective, doesn't it?
Beautifully. It captures the psychoanalytic understanding. The body isn't just a machine, it's an extension of the mind, a vessel holding our history, our unconscious truths. It communicates constantly.
The challenge is learning to listen.
That's the heart of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this whole exploration, it's really an ongoing journey, isn't it? Not about finding one single answer.
No definitive final answers, usually. More about increasing understanding, self-awareness, and hopefully finding more adaptive ways to live with our complexities. And hearing Anna's story, or these kinds of interpretations, it inevitably makes you think about your own experiences, doesn't it? Your own unexplained aches or patterns or even dreams. They might hold potential for transformation too.
Absolutely. The body remembers, it holds our history, and sometimes it whispers the truths our conscious mind isn't ready to hear. The key really is to listen.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. What might your own body be trying to communicate right now? What silences in your life or what persistent whispers of pain might be worth exploring?